We're here to talk about automated GraphQL security testing. We're gonna fire up a test application. We're gonna create a build pipeline for it. And at the end of that build pipeline, we're gonna run a scan automatically using StackHawk, which is a DAST scanner. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. Focusing on GraphQL, it's pretty simple. We've got plenty of time to do this. Usually we've done this workshop in the past in 1 hour. We usually stretch a little bit longer than 1 hour. So this time we've got 2 hours, and I don't think we're going to use all that time, but if we need to, we will. So here we go. About me, my name is Zachary Conger. I'm a Senior DevOps Engineer at StackHawk. Been here for a couple of years. I'm more of a DevOps expert than a GraphQL expert, so forgive me if I misstate something about GraphQL. But I'm very heavily into automation, testing, observability, and in my spare time, I like to play music, ride my bicycle, and take amateur photographs, like this moon picture up here that you can't see very well. Please ask questions in the chat. We've got a couple people in the chat who can help out with any issues that you come up with. Again, we've got plenty of time, so we are happy to wait for people to get caught up. So yeah, just ask questions. Thank you. All right.
And just to add on to that, Zach. So I'll be in my name's Rebecca. I work with Zach at StackHawk. I'll be in the chat kind of moderating. And then we also have another StackHawk teammate, Nick, here in the chat, who is here for technical support. If we're running things and you're not getting the right result, feel free to post in that chat or reach out to Nick directly and we can get you squared away. We want everybody to have a really successful workshop experience. So we are all here to make sure that happens.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so again, with the rundown, with the prerequisites, we've already been through this and hopefully people have gotten a chance to get these things, but the most important thing, which has links to everything else, is this guidebook, and it's got lots of copy paste materials. So as we go and do commands and configurations, you've got the reference right there. So if we go too fast, you can just copy and paste. We're going to use GitHub. We're going to fork an application into your GitHub account so that you can work with it. We're going to use Docker. You're going to clone that repository down to your workstation, and you're going to use Docker to build and run that application. We're also going to use Docker to run HawkScan, which is a pretty big image. So if you want to download that right away, you can get that out of the way. Now, let's just talk a little bit about GraphQL DAST scanning and what it is that we're doing here. So GraphQL, as you guys well know, I'm sure, is a query language and a type of API that's characterized by a single endpoint URL, typically, and that is typically /GraphQL by convention, although it doesn't have to be. A lot of the things in GraphQL are by convention, but don't have to be. It is kind of a good idea not to use GraphQL as your single endpoint just because it's so discoverable and makes it a target, but you know, lots of people do. There are two types of operations you typically do on a GraphQL data store, and that's queries and mutations. And queries typically just return queried data and often are considered to be safe types of operations against a GraphQL data store. But that's just by convention. So you can have queries that actually modify data in your data stores. And then there's mutations, and mutations typically update data and return queried data. So they can do kind of both operations. That too is by convention. It can just return queried data and not update the information. Pick your poison. And then finally, GraphQL is characterized by an introspection endpoint. So you can create introspection queries that allow GraphQL to return schema information about the data that it gives you access to. And there's automated tools that can do this for you and create an automatic schema. Those are actually a little bit, sometimes people don't recommend doing that because they can divulge too much information. It's often better to just curate the schema information that you want to give out. But anyway, it's a very powerful feature of GraphQL. And it's one that our scanner actually uses to ask about the information that's in the data store and ask about how best to probe the data and probe that endpoint. So what is DAST? DAST is the type of scanning technology that we're going to be using today. It stands for Dynamic Application Security Testing. And it's a way of, in this form of testing, you run your application and then you run a scanner against it. And you actually probe it with requests that are designed to probe for vulnerabilities. And then we analyze the responses from those requests. And based on the evidence that we get back from those responses, the scanner determines whether or not this looks like a vulnerability. So at the end of that, what it provides is a big report of bugs, security bugs that it thinks that it's found in your application. And this is a really solid method of testing. There's other methods that you can look at, like software composition analysis, which looks at your dependencies. You can look at static analysis tools that go through your code and try and query it and figure out if you've put vulnerabilities in there, if you've got patterns that indicate vulnerabilities. But DAST scans are kind of the gold standard because they're running against your running application. They tend to have fewer false positives. The vulnerabilities that they find typically are real things that are in your application that are going to be exposed when you run it in production. There are many DAST tools out there. Again, OWASP Zap is one of them. It's an open source project. It's the most popular open source DAST scanner out there. Our product is based on that. We've taken that application and built in a lot of features to make it faster, easier to work with, but we've also put a platform behind it so that you can do a lot more powerful things with it in terms of data analysis and team, working with a team on these bugs. So that brings us to StackHawk, our company. We make this scanner. We call it HawkScan. It's based on OWASP Zap, as I mentioned. We package it as a Docker container, and it's got a simple YAML configuration file that makes it really approachable, really easy to configure, but not only configure, but actually automate. So you can keep that YAML configuration in your source code repository along with your code. It's very easy to automate it in CI/CD. All you need is the ability to kick off a Docker run command in your CI/CD platform, and every one of them that I've come across allows you to do that. But we've got deeper integrations as well. For instance, GitHub Actions, Circle CI. There's a couple of them out there where we've done a deeper integration so that it's even easier to run it in those platforms. We have an online platform called app.stackhawk.com. And when you run scans, although you run the scan locally close to your application so that it's nice and fast with low latency network access, when it's done, it's going to send data back to our platform. And that platform allows you to collect all that information, track the scans over time, see how your security profile is looking, alert teams through Slack or MS Teams when scans are complete or starting or if new vulnerabilities have been found. It also allows you to triage issues that it finds. So, and we'll see some of this as we go through. So that if you have a bug that the scanner has found, you can actually work with it. So you can say, hey, that's a false positive, I reject that, or yeah, I know that's an issue, but it's not that important, so I'll accept that risk. Or you can actually assign it over to another developer or assign it as a bug in Jira with all of the information that the scanner has gathered about that issue. So you can track it to completion, and also so the scanner won't bother you about that particular alert because it knows that you know about that alert and you are dealing with it. We've got Slack integrations. a Slack integration and an MS Teams integration, and that's how we notify users. Got a Jira integration that I just mentioned, and if you have other tools that you want to integrate our scanner with, we can send webhooks out to arbitrary webhook services. So you can take that data and do what you want with it. We've got a couple of other integrations too. Finally, there's a lot of GraphQL enhancements. So GraphQL scanning can be kind of difficult, even though there's that introspection endpoint, makes it easy for a scanner to find out more about the schema. A lot of times scanners will struggle with how deep to go or how shallow to go. And so a lot of times with scanners, you either get not enough of a deep scan, or you get too much and the scan just takes forever because it's just looping on silly endpoints that are all virtually the same. All right. So let's get started with this. The first thing that we're going to do is fork this test application. It's in the KK organization, and it's called GraphQL API. And I'd like you to fork this application, and this is in that guidebook that we have, and we're also going to send a link out on Discord. Thanks, Rebecca. To this repository, and so we'll just go fork that, pull it down to clone it down to your workstation, open it up in your IDE, and then there's a script in there to remove all the existing automation that's in there so that you can work through that yourself. So I'm going to follow along with you. So I'm going to go grab a fork of this. Oh, geez. Sorry.
All good. That gives me time to mention. So we like to make sure everybody's able to follow along in these workshops. So anytime I post a link, I will add a thumbs up emoji to that. So just when you have been able to complete the step that link is related to, just click that thumbs up emoji for us so we know when we're ready to move on as a group and nobody gets left behind.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, so fork this. I will fork it myself, and I'm pulling it into my personal organization. We're going to be modifying this repository and pushing changes. So your personal organization is probably best. All right, I've got this forked, and now I'm just going to clone it down. I use Git. You can use Git or HTTPS, obviously, whatever, pick your poison. You just know that you're going to be pushing to it as well, so you should be authenticated. Let me change to sharing my whole screen here. Is that working? Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Thank you.
You sure can.
Cool. Okay. So you can use your favorite IDE. I'm going to use VS Code. Let's see, I'll open. Actually, I've got this already. Oh, of course. Okay, I've cloned that down. Now I'll open it up. Cool. I'm going to pop open a terminal window and run the script, which you should find under scripts, called workshop-prep.shell.
I think, Zach, I think people are still getting that repo cloned down to their workstations. So maybe
Cool.
we give it just a second before we get going.
We'll wait for those thumbs.
And I know in previous workshops, people haven't been sure how to fork repos. So Zach, will you just show how to fork that once more in case someone hasn't used GitHub?
Yeah, so I'll go back out to the source repository, kk/. vuln GraphQL API. And you just come over to this fork button over here, hit fork, and it asks you which organization you want to bring it into. You may only have one for your personal organization. That's what I did, is forked it over to Conger. You click on that, and after a short time, it will show up in your repository. So now I'm in my Conger organization. I've got the same application, it's forked, I've got a copy of it. But it remembers that I've forked it from Kaka. So this is a common way that people will work on open source projects, by the way. So they'll fork a copy of the repo, work on their stuff, and then you can actually, using GitHub, you can actually submit PRs from your fork over to the source that you forked it from.
Okay, and if you're having any problems with that or getting it running on your local workstation, feel free to post that question there in the Discord for everyone, or DM Nick, and we'll be happy to get you going. You have to do these 2 steps to pretty much do the rest of the workshop. So I want to make sure everybody has time and is squared away before we move on. But yes, Zach, I know you had one more step to get this repo ready. It was that script to remove the automation.
That's right, and I'll show you that again in just a sec. I wanted to pull up this this workshop GraphQL testing guidebook. So if you haven't gotten this one, go ahead and grab it. This is what this is made for. So if you're having any trouble with forking right now, and the steps to go through here, step 1, fork the test application. So this is basically walking through the same stuff that I'm walking through right now. So it's got a link out to there that you can fork from. You can git clone that down, enter into your project directory, or open it up in your favorite IDE. Could be Atom or VS Code or IntelliJ IDEA. And then we're going to run this script, scripts/workshop-prep.sh. And if anybody's having trouble with this and would like a hand, can we get some thumbs down out there if anybody's having trouble?
I will add that thumbs down emoji now, in case. Okay. All right, I'm going to post that that next step, Zach. Okay. We're going to CD into that vuln GraphQL API directory, and we're going to run this script to take away that automation, just so we can start clean.
Cool.
Oh, somebody beat me to the thumbs up. Very impressive.
Nice.
Hey, wonderful. Oh, okay, awesome.
Nice.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was missing the chats in the Zoom also. Thank you, everyone, for jumping in there. I'm going to post this workshop guide in the directory too, just so people can follow, or in the Zoom chat. Oh, hang on. That was not to everybody. Wonderful. Okay. There we go. So feel free to follow along there as well.
Cool.
Okay.
So somebody asked that they're having trouble finding the scripts directory. So when you download the repo, of course, you need to CD into that directory. And the directory should be called vuln GraphQL API. And then there's a scripts directory under that.
All right, and we'll give everybody just another moment or two. I want to make sure everybody's all caught up, and then we'll keep going. Like I said, these are the foundational pieces, so I want to make sure everybody has a chance to get these right before we move on.
We're doing great on time.
Yes, having the extra hour really is a game changer. So it's nice. I wish I had, prepared some jokes for the work time, but maybe our next workshop I'll be able to do that.
We are technical people. We struggle with humor.
We did get a question, which is if you're using a different email to the one we used when signing up for the workshop, do you still get entered in the swag draw? Yes, the swag draw happens based on completed scans. We will reach out to the winners in Discord, in the Get Nation Discord. We'll match your name. And if we can't find you in the Discord, we'll email the account that completed the scans. So no stress. We will find you if you complete the scan and win the swag. We did get a question on, the Docker Compose step. People are moving on to that Docker Compose step. And maybe Zach, you can weigh in on that one. They're getting an unknown flag.
Let's take a look here. Docker Compose, up, build, detach, getting unknown flag, build. It may be that you don't have the very latest version of Docker, or you're on Linux and you've got an older version there. So in the newer Docker desktop, you're on Windows? Okay. Try this. If you have Docker Compose, try the command docker-compose. So just instead of a space between Docker and Compose, do a docker-compose. And if not, if that doesn't work, try upgrading your Docker desktop.
Okay. All right. I think seems like, oh, sorry, where's the main channel on Discord? I will post that here. Someone just was asking, and then I think, oops.
Nice. Docker-compose works.
All right. So I just posted that link to join the Discord. That's in, and just a reminder, it's in that RADV free workshops section. It's like 3 or 4 major sections down, and we're in the October 11th GQL security testing. Okay, Zach, I think we should, let's start playing with Docker Compose.
All right. Next step, Docker Compose. Step 2, run the test app. Go back to my slides that I spent so much time putting together.
They look great.
Thanks. Okay, so in the IDE or on the command line, however you do it, let's take a look at this repository. So in here, you're going to find a number of things. First thing to notice is this Docker file. So the Docker file builds the Docker container that contains this application. And what it's going to do is basically ask you what server port to use. We're going to use port 3000. It's going to install a couple. It's going to use the Node.js image from Docker Hub. It's going to install a couple of applications that it needs. So let's see, apt update and app upgrade. So we're just getting the latest updates. Actually, that's not even really necessary. Anyway, I'm going to install SQLite 3, which is the database behind this application, and TSC. And then we're going to, once we have...
Could you make your font a little bigger? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Thank you so much.
My old eyes. Thank you.
Yeah, much better. Thanks. Okay, so then we're going to run database migrations. So we'll set up the schema of the database behind this application. Then we're going to seed it with a little bit of data. We're going to prep the GraphQL directory, which is where the app has been copied into. Change it to the app owner because that's secure. It's basically best practice to run as a non-root user in a container. And then we're going to run this Docker entry point script. And it's just a bash script that fires up this node application. And the node application just has this single route in it, /GraphQL. So that's the Docker file. Normally you do like a Docker build this thing, but we've got a Docker compose file that will take care of everything for us. So in this Docker compose file, we're going to get that image. We're going to find the Docker file here. And in this directory, we're going to send in the argument server port. And so we have to set server port to 3000 locally to make this work. We're going to build that image, and then we're going to fire it up and run the entry point, which starts the application within it. It's pretty simple, really. So I will do that now. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, I'll do that. So I'm going to export server port equals 3000. And then Docker compose. And for you, if you've got Docker dash compose, it might be this. Docker compose up, build, and detach. So the build just says, hey, if you haven't built this, or like whether or not you've built it, build it again. Detach means once we have this composition up and running, detach and give me my console back so I can do other stuff. So we're building, ran the migrations, seeded the database. And I had a bunch of these Docker image layers already set up. So it went really fast for me. It's going to take a while for you. And in fact, I might actually bring mine down just to show you what that's going to look like. So you've got a comparison. Say Docker compose down. I'm going to remove my image for this, which was StackHawk vuln GraphQL. And again, I exported server port equals 3000 because we want this thing to listen on port 3000. So export server port 3000, and then Docker compose up -- build -- detach to make it run in the background.
Yeah. And if you're getting errors that there's no port specified, just make sure you include that export server line first. And then if you're getting an error that there's an unknown flag or something like that, make sure you include the dash between Docker and compose. It just means you may be running a slightly older version of Docker where the command was Docker - compose. So if you're running into either of those two errors, give those a try. If you're running into other errors, let us know. It looks like we have a question. Someone's running into a problem where they're getting the no port specified error, but it's not working because they're on Windows. And so they used set instead of export. And it seems like that fixed it. So if you're getting that error and you're on Windows, try using set server port equals 3000 instead of export.
Thank you for that tip, Bilal. I want to copy that into the Discord channel too. Make sure everybody sees this. If you're on Windows, use the set command. And Bilal, do you have an exact command line for that? I've just been testing this on Mac.
Oh, okay. Or you need to use expose server port on Windows. I think set was creating an error on Windows. So I think, oh.
Okay. Okay. Set server port equals 3000.
Okay. If you're getting other errors, feel free to drop those in the Discord. You're probably not the only person seeing that error if you are. So want to help get this app up and running so we can run that scanner locally, have super fast scan times, and really see the magic of what happens when you can run security testing right next to that app that you're running. So feel free to drop any problems into that Discord, into the Zoom chat, or reach out to Nick directly, and we will get everybody squared away. We'll give everyone just a couple more minutes before we move on to the next step. Just want to see a few more likes.
This image can take a little while to build because I can't remember which component. I think it's the SQLite component requires some C compilation to happen. And that just takes a while, especially if you're on a laptop, maybe you haven't allocated much memory to Docker.
Yeah. Sorry, getting questions in the Zoom chat, but
okay, still getting the error. Step 418, expose server port, server port. Service base failed to build, no port specified. I wonder. Just noticed this. I wonder if we can actually set it right there. Set. I think this may work. So if you take a look at your docker-compose YAML file, in there's this args statement, args server port. I think if you just drop equals 3000 in there and try docker compose again, I think you might have some luck.
and then Zach, someone else. Oh, you run that.
Oh, yes. Okay.
It's getting some errors on step 11.
Cast between incompatible. Oh, yes, there are a lot of warnings. So these should just be warnings. Keep an eye on that. But if the image builds correctly and returns a command line without saying, hey, this didn't work, you should be fine.
Okay. What else are people running into? Would love to see a few more people get this stood up before we move on. If you have gotten this app stood up locally, feel free to react to that step in Discord with the thumbs up so we know people were able to follow along. We can keep going through the workshop once you have this app up and running. I feel like these first two steps are some of the hardest ones we cover in the workshop. And then once everything's stood up, it's really simple to get going from there. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel once we get through this. Oh, okay. Some people are just, it's taking forever to build. So
it really does.
I really should have prepared some jokes or some stories to tell. But awesome. Well, we'll give it just a few more moments to build then.
Yeah, this is something I think we can improve the next time we do the workshop, is see if we can get some of that stuff cached. Great. Conke is up and running.
Awesome.
Definitely takes a long time to build.
Maybe Zach, you can show us what the app that we just built locally, what it looks like when it's running.
Well, sure, I can do that. So mine is up and running, should be on port 3000. So you should just be able to browse to localhost port 3000. And we get a little graphical query interface. Excellent. Get some more successes. See something here. I've got a query stashed over here. So when I go to it, it takes me right to the graphical interface, which, by the way, is not a great idea security-wise either, to have a nice graphical interface to your GraphQL endpoint. Probably shouldn't bundle that with your code and your app. But we have, because this is a vulnerable app by design. Hang on a sec, let me find my query. Okay. I can run this query and add this command. Run query, and I get a result, which is some UIDs. And this app really doesn't do much besides this. Super simple. And part of the reason for that is just to make it well, one of the intentions was for it to build quickly, and that's not happening, but
But we're doing
also,
our best.
But also so it'll scan quickly, and that it really does do. It scans pretty quickly. Okay.
Awesome.
And
yes, I'm wondering if that's a Docker dash compose problem, given that it's running on Linux. But
oh, let me paste in the mutation. Okay, so there's the mutation command and the query. And you should just get some data back.
and Zach, maybe you can look at Andreas's error. I'm not sure if it's a CD problem.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No such file or directory. I don't know.
GraphQL exited. Andres, can you paste some of the commands that you run before you get to there? Is that during the Docker Compose build?
Yeah. Just
Oh, you took detach away.
oh, okay.
Are you, Andreas, are you able to reach the server? Is it running on localhost port 3000? see. Are you on Windows or Mac or Linux? Okay. I have not tested this one on Windows. Hey, Bilal, did you get this working on Windows? I wonder, Andreas, why don't you try, have you tried adding this server port equals 3000 to the Docker compose file?
I'm on Windows. No, Bilal has not been able to. He's stuck on step 5.
Step
Okay.
5, copy. Which ones have? Wow, I wish I had a Windows machine to test this out with. Okay. Let's see. Let me see what your error is. See if I can Google around for this.
Yeah.
User. I think. So I have a feeling that this is a Windows permissions issue, exec user process. Because I think what it's trying to do there is create the user app, and it's failing to do so. But such file information. Okay.
It looks like Nick is on it with some Stack Overflow.
Thank you, Nick. Yep, I found the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, Nick. Now this is all coming back to me that we have run into this before. I can't remember how that person fixed it.
Yeah,
I know, Nick, you worked with the last person that ran into that as well. So
there's an answer in that Stack Overflow thing. Here, I'll put it up for other folks to look at.
oh.
So I think this is on your Docker compose file and your Docker file, probably.
Right.
Believe it or not, we're still doing great on time, everybody.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think if you're still running into problems, ping Nick. He's now promoted to a panelist, so you can chat him in the Zoom chat, or he's right here answering questions in the Discord. Nick is a whiz. He's helped us troubleshoot many issues on this before. So if you're running into problems, ping him. But I think, Zach, do you want, we'll give it another 30 seconds and then we'll keep going through the rest of the workshop. It looks like hopefully the people that were having that app take a long time to build, it has built and they're ready to rock.
Yep. And if there are people who are still working on stuff as we move ahead, refer back to the guidebook. And I think, we should still have time at the end too. And we can hang out for a while until the end of the 2 hours and help people through.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, so we've run Docker Compose. We've brought the system up. We've checked it out on localhost port 3000 and run a sample query. Next, we want to run a hawk scan. So this is the part where we're going to go to stackhawk.com. I'm presuming that we're all going to be new users. And as a new user, you'll get walked through the get started flow. And it's going to ask you questions. It's going to say, hey, here's your, oh, nice. Got another one. Andreas, congratulations. Great job. So we'll log into app.stackhawk.com. It's going to set up our initial API key. And the API key is so that when you run the scanner, it can send results back to the platform, authenticated as you, so it knows to put the scan results in your buckets. We'll set up the first application, which we're going to call vuln GraphQL API. We're going to set it up in its first environment, and we'll call that development. And this is an arbitrary value. So we're all going to get a free developer account at HawkScan or at StackHawk. And it's free for life, free for developers. We're also free for open source projects. So anyway, we're going to walk through setting up the first API key, your first application, which will be given a big long UUID that's mapped to your application, an environment, and you can have as many environments as you like, because for each application, we expect you to scan it in different environments, maybe locally on your workstation or in a CI/CD pipeline or in a QA environment. And then finally, we'll tell it what host we're going to be scanning. And in our case, it's HTTP. Should not be HTTPS, it should be HTTP. Localhost port 3000. Okay, so I'm going to pop out to app.stackhawk.com right now. And we're going to sign up for a new account. I'm going to use my Google ID because it's really fast to sign up that way. GitHub is also very fast. You can do email if you want. And in that, you're going to set up like your email account. You'll set your own password. It's going to want you to verify your email address. So it just takes a little bit longer, but you're welcome to do that too if you want. So sign up for a new account. I'm going to use Google. And I'm going to use one of my many shady personas. And fire up StackHawk. So this is the StackHawk welcome screen. And in the StackHawk welcome screen, it's going to offer you to change just this one thing. I'm going to say it's my workshop org, so I don't get confused later. And it gives you a little information. This is authorized through Google. This is the account we're using, and so forth. And then I'm going to continue. And let's pick the developer free account. This is free for life. And if you did want to go pro later, you can upgrade it to a pro account. That's no problem. All right, hit continue. And we want to scan my application, not Google firing range. This just sets up some sample data so you can start looking at the platform without having to scan your own app. Continue. And welcome to StackHawk, it says, and it's going to walk us through the getting started flow. So we'll walk through these 4 steps. Again, we're going to get an API key. We're going to set up our app name, environment, and stuff. And then it's going to give us a YAML file that we can use as our initial StackHawk configuration. So this API key, I recommend that you save a copy of this somewhere. Maybe you can save it in LastPass or open 1Password, or really just copy it to a text file for now. Or please do this step. So this step is going to, you can just copy and paste this into a terminal window. There's also a PowerShell version if you're running on Windows. And what it'll do is it's just going to create a .hawk directory in your home directory and a file under there called hawk.rc. And it's going to save your key to that file. So you've got a local copy that you can always come back to. And we will need to come back to this later. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it in. And I already have a .hawk directory, so I get this error, but even so, it's still stashed my key in that file.
And Zach, if someone, I'm guessing somebody maybe had already signed up for a StackHawk account, so they're not getting that initial welcome wizard, could you navigate to show them where they might be able to get an API key?
Yes.
Or I guess that's going to take you out of the welcome wizard, huh?
Well, I think I can do this in a private browser. There we go. Yes. Let me try this.
Huh. Or if you, let's see.
Actually, let me just go to my existing account.
That's okay. It looks like maybe they figured it out based on the directions I put in there.
Okay,
but
good.
It's just over on that left-hand side, if you see where Zach's name is kind of hidden behind that opacity stuff right now, you'll click there and go to settings, and then you can generate more API keys.
Yeah.
But okay, perfect. Thank you, Zach.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you already had, you can, yeah, there's this add an app button over here too, if you already had an existing account.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got our key, we stashed it somewhere, and we stashed it the recommended way under the .hawk directory. And next we're going to set up our app details.
Hey,
So
Zach, I'm going to just do a quick thumbs up to make sure people have stashed their API key. I know when I was first getting going with StackHawk, I had some trouble with that hawk.rc file. So give us a thumbs up if you were able to stash that API key. If you're running into problems, that I had lots of problems with that step too. So feel free to let us know if you're running into any errors. Oh, can you post that shell script, Zach?
Oh, yes.
It's not in the.
So here is, I'm going to post the bash version first, and then the PowerShell version second.
And of course, just make sure you update the API key to be your API key instead of Zach's API key.
Oh yeah, you all have my API key now. That's not good security.
That's not good security, but I have a feeling this is going to be taken down. This app is going to be taken down shortly after this.
That's right.
Okay. Great. It looks like people have had pretty good success with that. So perfect. Now we can go on to application details.
Cool. Okay, so we'll call the application vuln GraphQL API, which is the same as the repo name. That's kind of just the convention I use. I think most people do that. Next, we'll select the environment. And again, this is a concept. You can have as many environments as you want. And the platform is going to sort of bucket data by environment for an app. And so you'll get to see over time what your scan results look like in development, pre-prod, and production, if you have those environments. And of course, you can call them whatever you want. You just change the name under the end setting. I'll show you later. It's very easy. Then we're going to set our host to localhost port 3000. So the formatting here is kind of important. You want to make sure it's HTTP, not S, // localhost port 3000, no trailing slash, It'll gray out and stop you from doing that. Just this. And next. Okay, so we've got our application ID, and this is going to be present in your StackHawk YAML file. Otherwise, I'd say save it, but you can always find this application ID later. It's available in the platform. It's not a secret. So we're going to download this file. And oh dear, this is going to open with Xcode.
That always happens.
Actually, I'm going to circumvent that. Open it in Atom. Okay. So download the StackHawk.yaml file and open it in your favorite text editor, which I'm pretty certain is not Xcode. And all you really need are these first 4 lines: the app, application ID, env, and host. And those are the pieces of information that we just set up in the platform in the Get Started wizard. So I'm actually just going to copy this and put it into a fresh new file at the base of my repository called StackHawk.yaml. And the name is important because this is the file that the scanner is going to look for by default. So in the StackHawk YAML file, this is one of the magical things about StackHawk is that's a pretty easy DAST configuration file. Now, this isn't going to give you a very deep scan, but it does give you an effective scan, and it is going to find some information that's usable. So there's one of these per configuration file. Each configuration file or set of files strictly pertains to a single application. Got the application ID, the environment we're running it in, and the host that we're going to scan. And you can use environment variables in here too, so that you can use automation to send in different information depending on the environment that it's going into. But for now, we'll just keep it simple. So there we go. And then finally, we can just copy and paste this. What this is going to do, and there's a PowerShell version as well, is it's going to source that file that we created. So it pulls in that environment variable that contains your API key for StackHawk. Then we're going to do a Docker run to fire up this container, the HawkScan container that will run the scan based on the configuration file that we just made. So just to walk through this Docker command, because I know it's a little complicated. We're going to say Docker run a container. We're going to send in the environment variable API key. So within the container, HawkScan is expecting this environment variable API key. So we're going to set that environment variable to whatever we have in Hawk API key, which is that variable that you exported that contains your StackHawk API key. When the scan is done, we will remove the container. So you don't get your Docker PS littered with old HawkScan containers. We are going to volume mount the current working directory to /hawk within the Docker container that's running HawkScan. And that is where HawkScan is going to expect to find your StackHawk.yaml. So you should be in your repo directory when you do this. So it's going to mount your repo directory to /hawk so it can find your configuration file. -IT is for interactive and TTY. That's just so it can print results out to the console as it runs. StackHawk HawkScan latest, grab the latest image. Okay, let's do it. So I'll hit go. Sourced my file, Docker run with API key, mounted the current directory. It's printing out a little bit of summary information for us. It's got the latest version of HawkScan. You notice that it doesn't think this is a GraphQL application, and that's because we haven't told it yet that it's a GraphQL application. MSMPS, yes, that's right. It should be HTTP, not HTTPS. Thank you for that. I'm going to fix that in the guide.
I'll fix that in the. Okay, that is fixed in the message. Okay, Zach, I think we have a lot going on. So if you're able to get that YAML in place, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you have that host set to HTTP, not HTTPS. Thank you, MSMPS, for catching that. Hopefully that will fix your 28-minute scan time. Obviously not what we're hoping for, so we appreciate that. It looks like, Zach, somebody doesn't have the API key stashed.
Yes.
Source.hawk.rc file.
Yes. And Alexi, are you on, may I have the PowerShell call? Andreas, here you are. And Alexi, I'll be right back to you in just a sec.
Alexi, you can see how we did that if you scroll up to where Zach pasted his API keys. Those are the commands to create that hawk.rc file.
Right, up here. Now, you can also, if you still have this window open, you can jump back to your API key and get these commands back.
Mm-hmm. I think in settings, you can also see your API key once more after it's created.
That's right.
So if you don't have that API key handy, go back to your name, settings, and then API key, and you'll see it there.
So if you're just trying to concentrate on getting these steps correct, you can walk through this create new app process. I'm going to walk through it one more time. Angelos, you can't see the API key later. Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you can create a brand new API key if you want. And then you can just go back and edit that hawk.rc or hawk.ps1 file. Okay, I'm going to walk through this. So turn the volume down if I'm just distracting you for a moment. But I'm just going to walk through this one more time. So when we first jump into this getting started flow, first thing it asks is generate an API key. And this is the API key that we're going to send in to the HawkScan container so that it can use it to authenticate to the platform.
I got the chat. Okay. Zach, you keep doing that.
Okay. So then, so we're going to take that key, and this set of commands here saves that key to your hawk.rc file. So it's actually in .hawk, the directory, and under that, there's a file, hawk.rc. So it's just sending this line, export hawk API key equals your API key. And we're going to use that API key environment variable later just to pass it into HawkScan. So HawkScan has it. Next, we set up the application. You can give it an arbitrary name, doesn't matter. What HawkScan is really interested in is the application ID, which is a big UUID number that's generated and associated with this name. And then in the environment, this is arbitrary, but just for consistency among us, choose development. In your environment, of course, you can use whatever name you like. You just edit it in the YAML configuration file. For the host, we're going to be scanning HTTP localhost 3000. So I've got in my documentation, I've got HTTPS. That is a bug. That's a typo. We really want to be scanning HTTP. So I'll fix that in the prezo for next time. And then finally, it gives us that application ID, which is associated with the name Vuln GraphQL API. You can download the StackHawk.yaml file, put this in the base of your repository directory, and then you can use these commands to run the scan. So source this to export that environment variable API, Hawk API key, and then use Docker run to send the API key into the HawkScan container, have it kick off its scan, and be able to communicate with the platform.
Hey, Zach, someone has gotten a failed to connect to scanner after 300 seconds error. I think we've run into that before when the local host isn't set correctly. Am I recalling that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's try this.
You got it. Go ahead.
So the default command that we use may not work on some environments. If you add this -- network host right before, so that -- network host tells the container to just use your local host's network stack instead of trying to do an isolated Docker network on top of it. And a lot of times that will make those kinds of can't find localhost issues go away.
All right, what other errors are people running into? Looks like we got the 28-minute scan resolved, so that's good. A little hard to automate scanning when it takes that long. So, all right. Why don't we give everybody a few more minutes?
Yeah. Oh, interesting. So the requested images platform. So fascinating. Oho, are you running on a brand new MacBook Pro with an M1 processor?
Ah,
you lucky person. That's really
wish
awesome.
you could have brought one for all of us, though.
Those are great laptops, but they use an ARM processor, and all of the HawkScan container is based on an Intel image. So you'd have to run on an Intel-based machine, unfortunately.
Ooh.
But if you have a Linux box handy, you could walk through all of this stuff on a Linux machine and it should work. Unless it's Linux running on a Raspberry Pi or something, which is also an ARM processor.
Okay.
All right,
All
nice.
right. I'm gonna drop in just a quick. Is it Command C that kills the scan, Zach, or Command
Oh,
K?
Control C.
Control C. Yes.
Yeah.
If you're on a Mac, Matt Simpson, I think you can do Control C. If you're on a Windows machine, try that. Let us know.
If you're on a Windows machine, just reboot. Just kidding.
Just turn it off and back on again. Great.
Oh, Matt Simpson. So if you have one that says that it's still in progress and you've killed it locally, it may just show as still in progress in the web console for a while, but eventually should clear out.
All right. If you were able to complete a scan, give us a thumbs up in Discord, because we're going to add some more exciting stuff, bells and whistles and GraphQL specific scanning capabilities, and maybe we'll even have time to automate it in pipeline. So let us know. But of course, if you're still figuring out the scan, we don't want to move on without you.
Okay, let me just show a little bit about this scan that we just ran. So if I click into, if you click into the scans section, this is going to be a running list with the latest one at the top of all of the scans that you've run. And the summary information that you've got here is, okay, the last thing I scanned was this application, GraphQL API, in the development environment. I found 6 paths, and I found some issues. None were high severity, 8 were medium, and 12 were low. And then there's this, in parentheses, there's this triage number. So that comes in the future when you triage issues, like assign them out to developers or say risk accepted. This number will start to grow, and it will take away from the number of vulnerabilities. So if you triage all 8, this is going to be 0 parentheses 8. And that's just to track, what are you actually, what have you acknowledged, and what are you working on, and what does HawkScan not need to alert you about in the future and count against you? Because you can set this up to actually block your build if you want. By default, it doesn't do this, but you can set it up so that, like, you set a failure threshold of high, so that if it finds any new high severity alerts, it will actually return an error, and that can be set up to block your build. So your build will no longer complete, and you can't, like if you have this set to run on PR, which we recommend, your PR tests will fail. And so you can't merge it until you either fix that high severity issue or triage it, assign it to somebody. We just want to make sure that you have dealt with it. But again, that's not the default behavior. This is just an option. If I click into this, I get to see more details about the issues that were found. So there's a cross-domain misconfiguration. We're we're setting our CORS header to allow cross-site scripting from anywhere to here. And so one of the things that you see is, like, in all of these paths, we found that issue. This is the request we sent, including the evidence header that we sent in and the response that we got back. And highlighted in red is the problem that it found. You can also validate these issues. So I can construct a curl command right from this website that allows me to run exactly the same probe that got sent in, and I can verify that I get exactly the same results. So I'll just copy that to my keyboard, clipboard. I will paste the same thing in, and I get the same response, including that access control allow origin response header. So that's kind of cool, but none of this is GraphQL, of course. So next we need to tell this scanner that this is a GraphQL app, so we can actually get some good GraphQL results. How are we doing in the chat, Rebecca?
Their scan ran, but it returned 0 findings. And I'm wondering, it looks like it may have been configured to run on an HTTPS localhost. So I'm wondering if we rerun it on an HTTP localhost, if that will change things. I'm trying to think of other reasons we've run into that type of behavior before.
Yeah. So Alexi, just go over to your StackHawk.yaml file, and I think you've got an S there. Just make that an HTTP and save it and run the scan again. And in the meantime, I'm going to come back here to the workshop slide. So we've run our first Hawk scan, and now we're going to tune this up for GraphQL. So we're going to add a couple things to the StackHawk.yaml configuration file. We're going to tell it that it's a GraphQL configuration. We're going to enable GraphQL configuration. And there's a lot more options under here, and I'll show off a couple of those in a little bit. We're going to turn on auto policy, that's so that you're fully insured when you drive down the road. Or I mean, not really, that's not what that is. Auto policy is actually a thing that automatically configures the ZAP scan policy depending on the features you've turned on. So auto policy is going to recognize that you've turned on GraphQL conf. And so it is a GraphQL application. And so it's going to, so this is an OWASP ZAP concept, is that they've got scan policies that turn on and off various features to tune it to your scan. So this is going to turn off things that are really not at all related to GraphQL and make sure that all of the GraphQL related plugins and probes are turned on. And this has the effect of making it more accurate and faster. And then we're also going to turn on, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Zach, I'm just going to add on to that. I think Lassa posted in Discord about that. He had different results than you, I think, slightly. And so that can happen when you're using a dynamic application security testing tool to scan GraphQL apps, because a lot of DAST tools just weren't created. They were created long before GraphQL was created, so they don't have a way of making sure those scans are repeatable and accurate and find all of the right things specific to your GraphQL app. So by implementing these pieces that Zach is talking about here, you'll find that we get better quality results that are very focused on that GraphQL app, since we're pulling the right policy, since we're invoking that API correctly, and we're able to better spider that app.
That's right. Well said. So we'll turn on also this auto input vectors feature. We'll set that to true. What that does is normally, excuse me, HawkScan is going to try every different kind of request that it thinks could work. So that means in GraphQL, it might try gets and posts. But with auto input vectors, it's just going to get smarter about that. And for GraphQL, for instance, it's just going to do post, cuts down on the scan time, and not sure if it improves accuracy, but it definitely cuts down on the scan time. And usually when you're using GraphQL, post requests are what you want anyway. Then finally, we're going to turn off this default spider. So the scan that we just ran used the default classic web spider. It operates like Google. You know, it finds the root, finds any links off of that, follows those, finds any links off of those, and continues to spider through. We're going to turn that off, because instead, with GraphQL conf enabled, it's going to go find by default that /GraphQL endpoint and run introspection to figure out what it can scan in your GraphQL API. So let's do that. I'm just going to copy my own work here. And this is, you can actually copy and paste this from the guidebook as well. GraphQL conf enabled is true. I'm going to set auto policy true and auto input vectors. And we've got soon we will have auto completion for most IDEs. I don't know if I should be saying that, but we're working on that so that you can auto complete some of this stuff. Then we're also going to add a major section here called Hawk, which has some of our special Hawk scan only features. Going to change the spider base false. So this turns off the Google web spider. And then if we run our scan again, just as we did before, using the same command. And again, if you're having any network trouble, you might try -- network host, and we'll run that scan. So now it finds that we do have a GraphQL configuration, scanning localhost. It's got a scan ID to refer back to. We found the StackHawk YAML configuration file. And now when it spiders, it's going to show us a different kind of spider result. Before it said, hey, I found these paths. But this time around, it says, hey, I found these schema objects that I can go and scan. Then if I pop over to the StackHawk platform, I should see that scan has started. And I can click in and watch results come in. So it found 3 paths. It has a few findings. And it's running through the plugins. This is kind of cool. You can see what Zap plugins are running. And this can be a useful place to come when you're troubleshooting if a scan starts to take too long. You can take a look at how many tests are running. One thing with GraphQL applications and any application that's got data behind it is that the scanner is very aggressive and it will try to manipulate data. So it will actually try and go in and delete users, for instance, or so this is one reason you don't want to run this in production. It'll try to add data or remove data. And so your scan results may change from run to run unless you condition your database. So this is why we like to set up a fresh database, seed it with known data, then run the scan. And if you do that every time, and this is part of the reason why it's so nice to be able to automate all of this, is that you're always starting from a known data condition. All right, so are we done? Yes, completed on. Mine took about 2 minutes. Mutation. Oh, Alexi, you have this trailing slash here. Try removing that trailing slash in the configuration file. We're a little bit picky about that.
All right, and if you're able to run the scan, give us a thumbs up. Sometimes when you're updating that YAML, if you add an extra space somewhere, it can be a little bit finicky. So if you're getting any errors, let us know. We can help you troubleshoot those. Want to make sure everybody gets a successful scan with that GraphQL option configured. All right, we've got 7 thumbs up on running that scan. If you're ready to move on, just give us a thumbs up so we know. If your scan's still running, that's cool. We'll keep hanging out.
Cool. Nice. Okay, successes are rolling in. I'll just walk through some of these results a little bit more. You can see now we've got a couple of high severity issues that have been found, including SQL injection, where it found that it could send in a request. And at this one, I'm not actually really super sure about this. So we get a SQLite error back. SQLite error unrecognized token hyphen, and that looks like it might not actually be a SQL injection. I'm going to need to check back with the big brains on this one, but this other one I am quite certain is a real vulnerability: remote OS command execution. So what this finds is that if you send in a correctly formed mutation, and you sneak in this extra command, you can cat the etc password file, which isn't really that bad, but it's not good to be able to run extra commands on your application server in your data center. The response that we get back is actually your entire etc password file. And if this container was actually running as a root user, you could probably get your shadow file too, which really is bad. You could probably also manage to do things like install arbitrary software into that container, maybe run a Bitcoin miner, that sort of thing. I might be talking a little bit beyond myself, but these are plausible things. So this is a real issue, and it really is a high severity issue. So we can click on this, and if we want, we can say, hey, that's fine, or nah, I don't believe it, but I do believe this one. This really is an issue. So the right thing to do here is to assign this to another user. Now, I haven't set up my Jira integration here, but I can show you what it looks like to set up a Jira integration, if you can bear with me for a moment. And this will allow some folks to continue working on the scan. I'm going to go to an incognito window, log in with my normal account. I'm going to log in here. I'm just going to jump in here and select this thing, and I'm going to assign this to myself, and hopefully this integration is still set up. I might have torn it down, but scroll over here and say send to Jira, and it finds my project. I've got an engineering project in Jira, sets up a summary title for the issue, which is a brief description of the application that it refers to and the vulnerability that was found. And then it's got all this great detail where it says, hey, I found this when I ran in GitHub Actions. Here's the finding, here's the criticality, the path that is at issue. And then here's a link back to the scan results. So I can look at this entire set of data here and validate the scan and everything. Hit create issue. Yeah, it actually works. And then open that link. I was only nervous because I can't remember if I had this set up still. Hey, welcome. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to show you the ticket in the system because I don't want to walk through all of this stuff, but it is there. It is a super handy feature. All right, let's check and see where we're at.
Oh, we did get a question, which was, how does the tool find this type of issue? Does it run multiple queries for the specified query? Maybe you could just give a quick overview on how DAST works. For
the remote execution one in particular. So in general, what happens is there's a ton of plugins that these scanners have. And we're using a lot of the plugins. We've got some of our own, but we're mostly using them from the OWASP ZAP project. And those are open source plugins that have been vetted by the community and contributed by the community. We've written a couple of them as well. And basically what they do is, in this case, the remote OS command injection, what it does is it tries a couple things to try and inject an OS command. So this is the one that worked. There were probably a bunch of other ones that didn't work. But it just tried, it said, hey, I found in the schema, when I did introspection, I found that there's a mutation called super secret private mutation, and it's got these characteristics. I'm going to try sticking some malicious things into this query and into this variable that I send in through the query to see if I can trick it into running an arbitrary command. And the example that they gave me for the command that I can run is caca, but I'm going to try slipping in an extra command, cat etsy password. So it sent in that request, and the response that it got was what it would expect to see when you go into a container and run cat etsy password. Etsy password is a file on all Linux systems. It contains all the users of the system. And it actually used to contain their encrypted passwords as well. It doesn't anymore, but it's still an important file, and it's an important file to protect. So anyway, it finds that the results of that command that it sent in were what it would expect to see from that command, from the cat etsy password command. So that's how the scanner knows that it found a vulnerability, that it found the ability to run arbitrary commands on the host. And that's our Vuln GraphQL API application container that it ran that command on. So if I log into that container, and why don't I do that? Let me see if I can connect to this container. So I've got the Vuln GraphQL API container running. This is our test application that's running on port 3000, and that we can jump into and run GraphQL on. If I run docker exec it vuln I remember my, yeah, vuln GraphQL shell. Yeah, so I've got a shell here. Now the command that it tried to send in was cat/etc password. And this is exactly the result that it got. It just shows it to you in a slightly different format because it's returning JSON. But you see there's the root user with the bin bash shell. And in here, we've got the root user with the bin bash shell. And that's what all these probes look like. They're just trying stuff. They're messing around and finding out if their vulnerability, if their attacks actually worked. The BST time zone is England, British Standard Time. I change, Tralala says, if I change the query from command and the fields from standard out and standard error to something else, will it run the plugin for such a vulnerability? I'm not sure I follow, but if you're asking, if I try injecting a different kind of command, can I get it to work too? Can I exploit this myself? And the answer is yes. Would it run the plugin for all string fields? It's really trying, it's trying some specific string fields. Oh, so if you had different string fields that you could send into the query, yes, it would try sending in that malicious content into all those string fields.
Okay, Zach, I'm thinking we only have 20 minutes and we still haven't gotten to the coolest part, which is getting this to run in GitHub Actions. So what do we say we do some make this automated so it could run on every pull request?
You got it. Let's do that. Okay, back to the slides. So we just tuned it for GraphQL. We ran that scan, worked beautifully, got cool results. So now what we want to do is we're going to take our API key for StackHawk. We're going to add it as a secret to GitHub Actions, and we're going to enable GitHub Actions workflows. Then we're going to create a workflow that looks like this so that when we push changes to this repository, such as all the updates that we've just made, it will go and build the application, run it, start it up as a service, and then run HawkScan against it automatically every time. Let me back up just a minute. GitHub Actions. I don't know how many of you have worked with GitHub Actions or heard of it, but it's a CI/CD system that's built right into GitHub. And so it's like Jenkins, it's like Spinnaker in a way. It's like Circle CI or Travis CI. But it's really nice because since it's built into GitHub, all you really have to do is add a file that defines the workflow that you want to run every time you push or whatever, and it will run it. So it's a super easy thing to set up. And you also get like 2,000 free minutes, even with just a free developer account with GitHub. So what we're going to do today is not going to cost you anything. Let me just walk through the taxonomy of a workflow really quickly. And this is a simple one. Give it a name, build and scan, tell it when to run. We're going to tell it to run every time we do a push to GitHub. You can also do it for PRs. You can do it for lots of different GitHub events that might happen, like a PR being accepted or somebody making an API call to GitHub, or another workflow finishing might kick this workflow off. It's very flexible, so you can create complicated pipelines this way. So every time we push, we're going to run a series of jobs, really just one called HawkScan that we'll name build and scan. It's going to run on an Ubuntu virtual machine. It's a full virtual machine that's got a bunch of tools on it. So the build tools that you need are usually there. The first step that we're going to take is to clone the repo. So we've pushed it. We've fired up this Ubuntu image. Now we're going to check out exactly the branch and revision that we just pushed. Then we're going to build and run GraphQL API. We're going to run this simple command to do the same thing that we did before. Export server port equals 3000 and Docker compose up build detach. And you notice I use Docker dash compose here. And that is because on this Ubuntu image, they don't have the newest version of Docker, but this works. Then we're going to run hawkscan. Now this uses the hawkscan action. This is a tight integration that we've developed for GitHub Actions. Just makes it a little bit easier to run StackHawk. So you don't have to run the big Docker command. You just run this action. And we're going to feed in the API key that we stashed in GitHub secrets called Hawk API key. GitHub secrets is just a secret store. This is important for any CI system that you use. You want to make sure that you protect your secrets. So don't put secret information into your repo directly. Always use a secret store. So let's walk through that. Okay, first off, I need my secret. Where did I put my secret? It should be back here in hawk.rc. There it is. So I'm going to copy that so that I can paste it into GitHub secrets.
Zach, will you paste that one in the chat? I didn't, just so people can,
Yes.
the cat command, just so people can grab that out of their
Yes, thank you.
IDEs.
There's one in the Zoom chat, and here's one in the Discord. Okay, so copy your key, and we'll jump out to GitHub to your copy of the GraphQL API app. And under the settings tab here in your repo, and then off to the left, way down here, there should be a secrets section. So I'm in actions secrets, and this is specific to this repository. I'm going to create a new repository secret. I'm going to call it Hawk API key, and this is case sensitive. And paste your key in right there. Hit add secret. And it shows up down here. So then this is available in an action workflow using that special notation secrets.hawk API key. So one more thing I need to do from the GitHub repository. I need to head over to actions. And because we forked this from the Kaka, from a different organization, from a third party, and brought it in, and the repo already had some workflows in it that we deleted. As a safety measure, they turn off workflows for you if you've forked it and there were existing workflows, because they don't, because somebody could sneak in a workflow that just runs a bunch of Bitcoin miners or whatever all the time, and you don't want that. So anyway, we know that this is safe, so let's go ahead and enable workflows for this repo.
And if you've been able to store that as a secrets, just give us a thumbs up. I know we're coming up on time here, so not sure how many folks are following along, but we posted how to do that in the Discord once more. So give us a thumbs up just before Zach jumps into how to build that workflow. Want to make sure everybody's able to successfully execute this.
Yeah. So again, just to show that off, you head over to this settings section in the GraphQL API repo. And then down on the left, there's the secrets section. And you add a new repository secret here and call it Hawk API key, and put your key in as the value and add the secret. I assume this will error out if I try it, because I already did this. Oh, it updated it for me.
Updated. Okay, awesome.
And then go over to actions and enable workflows. Okay, now, in the interest of time, because I know we're running short, I want to, I'm just going to copy and paste this workflow in, but we walked through what it is. It's just defining a job called HawkScan, named build and scan, runs on Ubuntu, clones the repo, builds the app, runs the app, and scans the app. And it pulls in that secret that we just created called Hawk API key. I'm just going to copy this whole thing and create it. So we need to create it under this directory .github/workflows. And we're going to call it build-and-scan.yaml. And .github/workflows is just where it looks for these workflow files. And every time you do a push or some event happens, it checks those. Pasted that in just as is from the guidebook. And looks good. I'm going to save it. And you should have a bunch of changes stacked up. I changed my Docker Compose. I've got StackHawk.yaml. We deleted some stuff when we ran that workshop prep. So I'm going to git add all of that. Git commit added scan config and workflow. And we're going to push it. So those commands right here. I'm going to paste that into the Zoom chat and Discord chat. And let me copy and paste your config file as well. So this config file again is github/workflows, and that's a .github. And your file can look exactly like this. There's nothing special about it that's unique to my repo. The only unique bit of information is what the scanner is going to find in the StackHawk.yaml configuration file and this secret key that we're feeding in. Now, if I go back to my repo and I've pushed that and I drop into the actions section, we should see all workflows, build and scan, one workflow run. And as you do commits, you'll see the commit message up here. And you'll see if it's running or not. It'll be yellow if it's running, green if it succeeded, red if it failed. You can click into it. And here's the build and scan job that is in the workflow. So that maps to this. And I can click into that and see how it's doing on these steps. So I'll click in. It has set up the job. It found Ubuntu 2004. It's got a virtual environment, provisioner. It's got a bunch of default environment variables and so forth. And then we cloned the repository, checked out exactly the same commit. So that's my commit hash. Then we're building and running the vuln GraphQL API. So this is the same Docker Compose that we ran locally. And here are some of those warnings that that one of our participants mentioned, but they're just warnings. They should be okay. Huge amounts of output. And here's where it's trying to seed the database with some fake users. Goodness, that's thorough. And then finally, it's completely built the application and started it up. And now HawkScan is running. the HawkScan action kicks in. And from the data that we fed it, it constructed this command. So Docker run tty remove volume. It's mounted the repository volume to the /hawk directory within the container, sent in the API key. It's using network host because that's always more reliable. And then it's found our stackhawk.yaml config file. Pulls down the image, runs HawkScan. It found our configuration file. It's running against localhost in the build environment, in CI/CD, in GitHub Actions. And it's noticed that it's a GraphQL application because we configured it as such. It's found some GraphQL routes, and it's in progress. So if I pop over to the StackHawk platform, I should see that scan has started, and it's running. Click in and see how it's doing. Running through these plugins. And if everything went right, it should be finding pretty much the same thing that it found on my laptop. What say you, StackHawk?
It looks like some folks have been able to get this up and running in GitHub Actions. We got a screenshot in the Discord. We'd love to see that. If you have run into any problems or getting any errors in GitHub Actions, please let us know. I know we're coming up to the end of our time here, so I want to get everybody squared away with another successful scan before we wrap up. So just drop us a line if you're running into anything funny.
Yeah, and if you're running on that M1 Mac and you've followed along to this point, if you push this stuff in, if you've got the configuration set up right, your scan will run in GitHub Actions through the pipeline. It's a little bit of a cheat code.
All right. Well, geez, we covered so much today. We covered scanning locally. We covered GraphQL custom configs. We covered running in GitHub Actions. We do have a couple more minutes. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop those in. We'd love to help get you answers. Or if you want to try to figure out how to set this up with your own app, GraphQL app, as well, definitely let us know.
Matt Simpson, yes, excellent call. That's right. You need to make sure that Actions is enabled, because on these forked repos, GitHub will turn it off by default because it doesn't want you pulling in actions that might be overly aggressive and do stuff that you weren't expecting it to do. So just to show you where that is. Just click over to the Actions tab, and if you click into Actions and instead of this stuff, you see a big button that says Enable Actions. Click that button. Or Enable Workflows. I wonder if I can turn it off to reset it. Actions. Disable Actions. Go back to, oh, it just makes it go away. That's no fun. But this is another place where you can go probably to find it. So go to Settings, Actions. All right, and while you're looking at that, if you're done and you want to see a little bit more of the StackHawk platform, let me show you just a thing or two. Under the Applications tab, there's this card view. So within each application, you'll see a card for every environment that you run your scans in. And you'll see this little bar graph. And the bar graph on the right-hand side is the very latest scan. A little bit older, oldest scan is the farthest to the left. And it shows you a profile of what it found in each of these runs. So you can watch over time, if you've got this in your CI/CD system and you're running scans every day, you can see how your profile has changed over time. If you triage issues, like assign them or accept some of them, you'll see a gray bar start to descend down below the axis. And so then you can get a view also of what you've triaged and how you've handled things over time. So that's the applications view. You can also, from here, you can get to details about your scan settings. You can set technology flags, for instance. I think tech flags are disabled. You get that on the Pro account. So with tech flags, you can define like, hey, this is running on Linux. I'm using IIS or Apache. I'm using Java and JavaScript. You can check in what technologies you're using, and that helps the scanner tune itself to, it basically speeds up scans and can increase accuracy. Tons of integrations. We've got integrations with all the various CI/CD platforms. We can notify you through Slack and Microsoft Teams. We can submit your data to Datadog so you can track it there. We can integrate with project management through Jira. And we've got generic webhooks that you can send out to other platforms. What did I miss, Rebecca? Documentation.
Yeah.
So go to docs.stackhawk.com, and there's tons of details on everything that we've talked about today and more. So one of the big things that you probably want to get into if you try and scan your own GraphQL application is most of your interesting routes are authenticated. So you want to head over to this authenticated scanning section and look into that. We've got scenarios, and it's all, again, just configured through the same YAML configuration.
Yes, Zach, we did just get a question on, can you break builds if you find, different severity types of findings? I know it's one line of YAML and I was just about to pull it up, but you probably know it offhand better than I do.
Yes, great question. That is under the Hawk set of stuff, and it's called failure threshold. I will copy this link.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so
if you want to break the build on when high severity findings are found, you just can configure that variable failure threshold with the value high. Same for medium or low. I think the teams we have that configured in CI typically set it to high, but certainly depending on the type of app you're working on and the regulations of your industry and customer requirements, you could make that as rigorous as you would like.
So I'll just show you where that goes to. I think it's under Hawk, right? And
yep, it is.
You'd say failure threshold is high. And if anybody wants to wait for that to finish, this should fail because I've got some high severity issues. It's a great question.
Awesome. All right, we're coming up on time, but any other questions we can answer before we wrap up? No, we still got about a week till the conference, but we'll be there and you can reach out to us in the Discord if you have any questions. In the meantime, if you need help getting this going with your own app, feel free to tag Zach or Nick in that Discord as well. We have a great support team here at StackHawk too. So anything and everything you could possibly need, we're here. And we will reach out to people that have won swag next week. Awesome.
Yeah, we really pride ourselves on support. We try and make this stuff as easy as possible, but it's security. It's still not as easy as we want it to be, and we're continuing to work on that. But if you ever have any problems, reach out to us through this channel, reach out to us at support@stackhawk.com. We will help you with your configuration. And if your company wants to trial this and give it a shot, for pro usage, we can set you up with a Slack channel so that we can actually interact in real time.
Awesome.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Yes.
You guys have been great.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you,
Thanks
Rebecca.
for leading us through it. We appreciate it. All right. Have a great morning, day, night, evening, whatever time zone you're in, wherever that may be. Have a good one. We'll see you guys at React Advanced. Take care.